Hi, good morning everyone, and this is Suri from Idea Spring Capital. I welcome you all to the Idea Spring Capital podcast. And today we have with us Sridhar Ranganathan, CEO and co-founder of B2Brain. B2Brain provides account intelligence on autopilot for competitive sales teams. Today we'll be talking about sales technology, its evolution, use of AI in sales, and various other things. Right? These same numbers, according to markets. Global sales intelligence market is expected to grow up to 3.4 billion by 2024 and is currently growing at 11.4% CAGR. And B2B sales and marketing intelligence solutions are driving improved business outcomes. And a Forrester study found that companies which are implementing sales intelligence solutions realize 35% more leads in their pipeline and 45% high quality leads leading to higher revenue and growth. And Sridhar, welcome to the podcast. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Suri. It's my pleasure to be on this podcast. Very interesting topic.
Yeah, thank you. Can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience to start with?
Yeah, I'm the CEO and co-founder of B2Brain. As you mentioned, B2Brain enables SDRs, account executives, to improve their pipeline by providing them very contextual account intelligence on the companies that they are targeting. My journey, I've been an entrepreneur for the past few years. And previous to this, I was running a startup called Credibase, which then pivoted into B2Brain late last year. And prior to Credibase, I was the VP of products and then the VP of corporate development at InMobi. And prior to that, I was at Yahoo. I built Maps, Jobs, Yahoo Local for the Indian market. And prior to that, I was at Zoho, which used to be called Advenet back then, really early days of SaaS. So I've had a couple decades of seeing how SaaS in the country has evolved from being an idea to a concept to an industry. And today we are talking of how can SaaS companies build $1 trillion economy in the country. So it's been a fantastic experience all along. I started B2Brain with my co-founder Karthik. We go back to first day in college back in IIT Madras several years ago. And yeah, that's been our journey. I enjoy building products that make people excited and happy and effective. This is a journey, and entrepreneurship is a calling.
Nice to know more about your journey, and we'll have more questions on that as we go along. So sales is one of the most important departments on any enterprise because they are the ones who bring in money, right? And they pretty much, according to me, support the entire organization because they bring in the money and money is needed. Okay, and surprisingly, sales is one of the last departments in an organization which is adopting technology. Okay, so as you know, like maybe in 2000, it was mostly no tech, low tech based sales, and sales was done mostly on the salesperson's Rolodex and like old voice network, that kind of approach, right? So can you tell me like how what has changed and what has evolved, like how sales is being adopted by technology is being adopted by sales teams in over the last 2 decades? How things are changing?
Yeah, it's a fascinating journey to see how the profession of sales itself has evolved. And I'm learning as we build the company as well, because we target all inside sales teams that are typically global in nature. So, and you know, the biggest fraternity or the biggest group of people entering sales as a profession today tends to be, the SDRs and BDRs, sales development representatives or business development representatives who are joining and starting off a sales career in several companies. Okay, and if I was to look closely, an analogous scene would be like the Java programmer of the 2000s. Okay, SDR today in sales profession is the equivalent of that. The interesting part that has changed though is we always thought of sales as, you go show some bravado and charisma and, cut a deal and, get like some 6-figure contracts in place and so on. Or we always thought of it as, make friends with people in the golf clubs while playing golf, or doing 4 or 5 martini lunches and so on.
Mhm.
Those are not anymore the paradigms of how sales happens today. Okay, sales today happens because businesses want to run fast, and in order for them to run fast, they have to use compelling and valuable technology. And if they have to use compelling and valuable technology, they also have to have the ability to decide and find out what are the best technologies to use, and who helps you uncover the hidden parts and the value that a piece of technology can provide you. It's going to be highly likely a salesperson. Okay, amongst all other things like customer reviews, all of that stuff, you put everything together, ultimately you end up seeking inputs, perspective from people as to how you can solve your problem for your business. The person who is likely helping you is somebody who's donning the sales hat. Okay, so
Okay.
when economies open up, when companies across the world are becoming more global in nature, of course, needless to say, internet has completely changed the game for us, right? Technology is everywhere, so information is accessible everywhere.
Accessible.
Mobile is like it's omnipresent. You're connected to people 24/7, which means you're by design you're connected to your business and therefore to its prospects 24/7. So because of the fundamental shift in the way people interact, communicate, and seek to do business with each other, what has happened is sales today is a lot more global of a profession than a local one. And if once it becomes a global profession, you need technology to enable people to do business with other people who are significantly distantly located. They're not in your neighborhood, they're not in your city, they're not in your state, they're probably in some other country, they're probably in some other time zone. So this shift in the way technology has enabled people to communicate, I believe, has changed the nature of how sales itself happens. It's a lot more. It's no more this singular, as I said, hero kind of a thing, right? It's a lot more of a team game that is driven by process, a well laid out process to take your prospect or your target account through a series of good steps that give them a great experience for them to convert and become your customer. And that process is backed by strong data and understanding about what the prospect or the target account requires at every point in time and how to reinforce the value proposition to them at various stages. And with the process and the data that you have, you also need tools to help you execute that team game. Okay, so that's ultimately what sales has become. It's become a strong team game that's executed well with process, data, and technology.
Okay. So the way I understand is, it's gone from a individual game to a team game, and based on data and analytics, and at the same to support these things, right? Basically, like I believe, like initially there were CRMs, which are mostly system of records, and then actually now there is a growth of technology to cover the entire aspect of sales, right? Whether it's lead generation and basically like there was like a system of records, and then there was a system of engagement, and slowly we are seeing the system of intelligence, right? Like which seems to be very important to win this game. So maybe like something about that, like what are the various aspects of sales which technology is helping now, and the end-to-end process of sales, how is it helping?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you can almost visualize what technology or what sort of systems would a salesperson need by trying to think through a day in their life, or a week in their life, or a month in their life. Okay, these are 3 sufficient time intervals to kind of think about what sort of technologies do you need. So take somebody's day in the life, right? They let's say you're a salesperson, you want to go and engage with some company. You have a product or a service to sell. Now imagine who will you speak to in that company? That's the first question. Okay, so you need access to the contacts in that company. Okay, and you need to be able to pick out the ones that are relevant for your business. Like if you're selling security software, you don't go and talk to the HR manager. Okay. Or if you're selling, retail analytics, you don't go and speak to the CFO directly. CFO might be involved, but you don't go speak to them. You speak to the retail business head and try and get them to understand the business case around it, and therefore once they see value, they loop in the CFO. So even on the buyer side, it's going to be like a team or a group or a committee that's going to finally make some calls on purchasing something from you, right? So you need access to the contacts. Now you also want more customers if you have to hit your quota. So where will you get more prospects that you can convert to customers? You need access to a list of accounts that are in the market. You might say, I'm focused on a certain market segment, so I need all companies in this market that are of a certain criteria. Your product or service might only work for a certain segment in the market. Okay. And if a salesperson says, look, we can solve the problem for any company, the word any is a bad word in the lexicon of a salesperson, right? The more specific and the more targeted they get about which target segment, it's better for them because they have established there's a need for your product. That brings us to the next question. You also want ability to target companies based on multiple criteria. Okay, so you need access to contacts, you need access to the companies, you need a way to target the companies, filter them, shortlist, focus on certain market segments, which in the earlier world used to be called territories.
And now actually there are a lot of startups which are providing those databases, ZoomInfo, so many of them.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. So there's a plenty. So the contacts and accounts database layer is fairly mature as a market. There's ZoomInfo, which is potentially the leader in the space. They've been in the news several years now. There is Dun & Bradstreet, there is LeadIQ, there is Adapt, there is a bunch of other companies that are doing that bit, right? Then you also need a system to kind of store and manage these records comfortably and easily accessible, which is where the CRM typically took its origins. Okay, CRM also had things like, okay, which contact or which account has become an opportunity, which one is closing, which one did you lose in the deal process, and so on and so forth. But the CRMs were not designed for. So CRM still is a large market. Even the market leader has got like plenty of white space ahead of them to kind of go after. So the market continues to grow. You name it: Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, Freshworks, whoever else, right? It's a very large market. So when sales teams started becoming more workflow and team oriented, they did not have good tools to run their outreach communications. And outreach communication even today is, while it's omni-channel, it's a limited number of channels. It's email, it's LinkedIn, it's phone, the three dominant ones. And then of course there are other social channels like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and whatever else. Okay. And the frontline salespeople are increasingly also donning the role of like the brand ambassador for the company. Okay. Oftentimes, at least in B2B, I can speak for, your frontline salespeople are the first ones who create an awareness of your company in the eyes of the prospect. Okay, so even how they come across, how they communicate, how their message becomes critically important.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So for them to do all of this, they needed workflow capabilities through which they can say, I'm going to reach a prospect multiple times. No prospect's going to say, yes, I'll buy from you in the first time that you knock their door. It's not going to happen. Now, it doesn't happen in real life. It can't happen in business. Highly unlikely.
I remember as one of my marketing and salesperson used to actually tell me, like, the only thing they are taught in college is not to say take a no from the customer.
Yeah. So yes, I mean there is a whole topic of discussion around the yeses and the nos. Maybe at another point in time. But for the salesperson to be effective, they will need to go after and engage with prospects multiple times. Okay. In order for them to do it multiple times methodically in a systematic fashion, is what gave rise to sales engagement tools like SalesLoft and Outreach and Closer Home. There is Outplay. In fact, they just announced a Series A last night, and this is a very fast-growing category today. Okay, this category is becoming important because what was the Vim or the VI editor for the Java programmer is the sales engagement platform for the sales rep. Okay, it's literally that. I mean, they live in that. Okay, and it's amazing. It gives tremendous productivity for a salesperson to load up all their contacts and accounts and make sure that they're reaching them in the right points in time. Sometimes your sequence or a cadence can run as long as like 60-90 days, right? Earlier, we have seen a similarity in the marketing automation world. You put people on a drip or a nurture campaign, they'll keep getting mails every once in a while. Okay, sales engagement platforms have taken that and executed that at the segment of one user. So it's not one company sending mail to N people, it's one user sending messages to N prime people, so to say. Right?
It's almost like a personalized sales approach.
Correct. Exactly. Because sales ultimately is a human-to-human transaction, right? Ultimately, right? So that is a fascinating evolution, because a lot of these sequences also happen via phone calls, and calls also take place in between. Okay, independent of the conversion rates of number of calls to number answered and so on. It becomes important for a company to learn what are the prospects talking about when the salesperson gets a chance to speak to them, because there's a lot of learning, right? You might be selling something, you might be positioning it wrongly, or you might be using the right or the wrong words to communicate to the prospect. So the need to understand what is going on in the call and interpret how people are speaking about, and therefore gain knowledge from it, actually gave rise to the whole conversation intelligence space, right? Which, for example, Chorus, which just got bought by ZoomInfo, or Gong, which is yet another very large player in the space, or Closer Home, there's Wingman, there is Convin, and a bunch of other companies that have come up in the space. They're all tackling the problem of what do you learn from a conversation between a salesperson and a prospect?
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you use that to improve your own knowledge of what's your market positioning, how do you sell, how do you position, all of that stuff. So that's yet another, it's increasingly becoming a fixture in the tools stack of the salesperson. Okay, so you have contact data, account data, then you have CRMs, then you have sales engagement platform, then conversation intelligence, right?
Yes.
This set of this stack could potentially be called a minimal sales stack necessary for a sales team to function in an efficient manner.
It's more of an operational efficiency improvement and basically accelerating the sales process and actually bring in uniformity and things like that in the sales process.
Correct. Exactly. Right. And with this stack, you can train, you can coach, you can enable multiple people in your team to scale up and get to what they call fully ramped status, right? Like a salesperson starts, it's almost like in cricket or football and all. Like you hire a newbie, somebody who's going to make a debut, they probably may not play in the first or the second test of a series, right? They'll be a substitute, and then they'll get used to the world and then kind of put them into the fray. So salespeople also undergo a similar thing, right? They are hired, they ramp up for like a month or two, or sometimes enterprise sales reps can be much longer. It could be like a couple of quarters, but oftentimes it's like up to a quarter or so, where you coach them, you help them understand what your sales process is, you get them familiar with the tools. These tools they can be intimidating unless you're familiar with them already. Okay. So go on, you had a question.
Yeah, and Sridhar, one more aspect I have been noticing is actually like in the difference between the field sales and the inside sales, because there is a trend where there used to be a lot of field sales, like 60 and 40% inside sales, and slowly like things are becoming 50-50, and people expect, okay, inside sales will slightly like overtake the field sales, because and that too, the pandemic actually accelerated, I believe, the inside sales approach to sales, right? And maybe like I would like to hear your thoughts on that, and what is why sales intelligence is important for both. You need to have that, but maybe it's more important when it comes to inside sales, is what I feel. I just want your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So B2Brain was incidentally, the first beta of B2Brain was incidentally rolled out when the pandemic hit the world shores of multiple countries, like sometime March, April last year, 2020. So we had a certain view of who we would work best with. Okay, and we believe that inside sales is the world that we would work best with. Okay, but the world changed. Okay, so to your point, yes, everyone thinks of field sales as people who will go meet customers and make a deal and come back. Okay, and inside sales as people who sit in the office and use their digital tools, phone, mobile and laptop to kind of get everything done. So that distinction is very prevalent. Okay, but what changed was, and this took everybody by surprise, even us, to be honest, was the quantum of shift in the world. Even field sales people who had to go meet customers could not meet customers pretty much all of last year. Okay, and probably even until like as late as maybe a month or month and a half ago, right? And this is because it's not that they can't go; the customers wouldn't want to meet you. Okay, when pandemic hit, so much so that we started looking at the world and said, who are in-person sales and who are remote sales. Okay, that seemed like a better distinction of people, because ultimately if technology helps you, it helps you to get some job done. Right? So if I'm an inside salesperson, for example, I'm talking to you, you are my prospect. While I'm talking to you, I can make notes in my CRM or in my SAP or in my a conversation intelligence platform or somewhere, or a note taker like a Dooley or something like that, right? But if I come and meet you in person, when I get the FaceTime, 20-25 minutes of FaceTime, I would rather be focused on you and at best, use my paper and pen to make a note. So these tools do not play a role when I'm speaking with you directly face to face, in person. Okay, so in that sense, you can think of tools that are valuable to get certain jobs done in certain context. Okay, but what was the stark thing that we noticed last year was that while 26% of salespeople were selling remotely in 2019, 93% were selling remotely in 2020. Okay, this was a massive departure. It's like people selling remotely grew 4x in 1 year.
Wow.
Okay, and in some sense you can see what sort of an impact that had on the larger tool providers like Outreach or Salesloft. These guys just skyrocketed in their value. Gong, Dooley, all of these companies, right? They just kind of had a massive jump in usage and customer traction, all of that stuff. Right? And coupled with them, another category of tools that saw a massive jump all of last year was the tools that were built for sales enablement. Okay, HighSpot or Seismic or Mindtickle or Showpad, a lot of these tools that were built for enabling salespeople. Because think of it, where you had one person sitting in office and running sales, you now have 4 people sitting in office and running sales. You have to enable them, enable the 3 new people to adopt a slightly different process. They can't go and meet a customer, period. Okay, and they also have to be more productive. Naturally, because in a day you can at best go meet 2 or maybe 3 customers at the most. That too, assuming they are in the same city or location or wherever, right? imagine all the time to commute, get parking, meet them up at a particular time, and like there's a lot of overhead time before and after a customer conversation. Now all of that time is available, and salespeople time is money. So make them more productive. If you have to make them more productive, you have to get them into a new process. If you have to get them in a new process, you got to train them. How do you train them? Sales enablement products. Right? So you can see that there is a fundamental shift that has happened in the way sales was being run, where it was field sales. I go meet somebody, shake hands, have a coffee, and then have a conversation, do some banter, to predominantly looking at a rectangle of a salesperson all the time, or a prospect, like you and I are doing right now, right? So you're always looking at people, or speaking to them over phone or over video call and trying to get stuff done. So that shift, there is a guy called Justin Michael who is well known in the sales space, and he's like a futurist. He recently put out a book called Tech Powered Sales, along with Tony Hughes, who's yet another fairly well known sales person, and they talk about, they kind of try and use the crystal ball to see where tech powered sales is headed and where the sales profession as such is headed. It's at least the early signs of this is there, that sales is becoming very technology led. So in some sense, if you want to be in sales as a career, you have to be tech savvy, literally. Okay, and that kind of goes back to my earlier hypothesis or an analogy of, salespeople. Today's starting position in sales profession is like it's mirroring the Java programmer. How the programmer moved from VI to NetBeans to something else to some other more advanced technologies and so on. I would imagine even as a sales profession, the secular wave is one of more technology coming into the life of a salesperson. Okay. So
okay.
And as more technology comes, the role of somebody who's doing field sales is probably going to be using technology that is just in time to help them build a more meaningful and impactful relationship with the customer.
Yeah, so with this trend of moving from field sales to inside sales and all those things, it becomes very, very important, because see, previously you had this opportunity to understand your customer better, in the sense that you go meet them and actually like you can see their body language and actually change your pitch if required and things like that, right? Which actually is tough to do now, in the sense that like you have to do more research on the other the person and the company and all those things, right? So with that in picture, what is that B2Brain is trying to do? Basically, like how are you actually like helping the salespeople, right? So with all these things, so how did you come across this white space and what made you start B2Brain and actually like where you are today? Maybe like you can spend some time on what you do at B2Brain, how you are helping the sales personnel, right? And to do their job better and to do their job faster. Both.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw this trend of companies wanting to, so we kind of start from company objective first, right? And or other companies of desired outcomes first. Companies want to grow their revenue faster. So they said, it's important for us to build a strong sales force that can actually build a pipeline of prospects and from there convert into revenue. And as insights, as tools started evolving, like CRM, SAP and so on, companies could afford to hire, and of course with the internet and global education, access to information, all of that happening, those are all secular things that took place back in 2018-19, right?
Correct.
Companies started setting up inside sales teams. And once you set up inside sales teams, you've figured out your mechanism of how do you hire talent, ramp them up, get them to be effective in selling the products and services to the right target segment. So that's really the machinery somebody's setting. When you say, I have a revenue engine going, that's really what they mean. Okay. Now this would happen, and as I said, B2Brain was a pivot from the Credibase product that we were running. We would sell to sales and marketing teams slightly different value proposition, not exactly what B2Brain does, But while we were working with a few customers, a bunch of SDRs and account executives in those companies, we noticed that SDRs would be equipped with all of these tools. They'll have a CRM, they'll have a sales engagement platform, they'll have access to the ZoomInfos of the world, and yet they would spend a bunch of time sitting and searching Google for information. And I would very casually ask them, like, what are you doing? Why are you, doing this? They're like, my email response rates are very poor, and nobody responds to my messages, things like that. And I'll be like, so what do you do? Why do you go to Google? So they'll be like, I'm trying to find out the most recent earnings release or the financial reports and try and find out something interesting about the company that I can use to stitch my message. Okay, instead of going and giving a plain Jane sales pitch, I would rather speak to the context of the prospect based on some information. So then, like, I'll be like, so what sort of information do you need? What I learned was each company, depending on the business they were in, the SDRs needed some specific types of information. Okay, so if you're selling security software, for example, again, one other thing, you wanted to know if the company had a breach of the perimeter or some DDoS attacks recently, or they had a vulnerability or threat or something of that sort, right? Because then you can take that and tell the company, hey, looks like you guys are facing this problem. Here's how my solution might be able to help, and here's how we have helped other people. Would it be worth a chat? Kind of. Okay. That's how the SDR's mind was running. But and that's very compelling. You want to speak to somebody relating to their world rather than to your world. Okay. That's what an effective.
Their world, and agree. Yeah.
So you want it to be. Somewhere I've heard about this Steve Jobs quote of how he makes presentations, and it stayed with me. You want a message to be specific, relevant, and contextual. Okay, and I've gone through a bunch of Steve Jobs presentations. They're always that. Okay, it's incredible. So that specific, relevant, contextual has remained with me. Now you can be specific because you're talking to a particular company. Between being relevant and being contextual is where the challenge comes. Okay, and that's where SDRs would spend enormous amount of time on Google looking through information per account. Okay, it's not like they do one search and find some information, right? Maybe the most interesting insight is on the 5th or 6th page of Google. No one has the patience to go through click 50, 60 results and then get to that one. Yeah. So this kind of stared at my face saying, man, this is a massive problem. Think of, just last year, I think the number of SDR openings on LinkedIn grew from whatever, some 10,000 in Jan to about 60,000 in September or something like that. So think about the market is just exploding, right? We just talked about, remote sellers market itself growing 4x last year. Yeah. Think of the number of SDRs, number of companies hiring people who have to be very functional and very highly productive, working with like 50, 100, 150 accounts every month and spending 20, 30 minutes per account on Google. That's half your day, half your month. Okay. So initially when this idea stared at my face, I knew this was a large problem to be solved and there weren't good tools to solve for it. Because no tool was aware of your business. Yeah. Okay. Tools oftentimes do not know what your business is. That was the key insight I had. And then we said, okay, if we had to solve for it, how will we do it? So we spoke to a few SDRs and said, give me your accounts. We will try and run some algorithms and run some small scripts, etc. to figure out some intelligence and give it to you. We want to validate whether we can actually solve the problem at all. Maybe nobody had solved it because it was unsolvable. We don't know, right? And as an entrepreneur, I've learned enough to kind of stay humble about stuff. So we spoke to a bunch of SDRs who were kind enough to kind of give us their list of accounts. They'll send me, list of accounts by email. I, along with a couple of people in our team, while our previous product was being supported, etc., we will pull together information using various search APIs, run some small scripts, small algos to figure out for this SDR doing this business, what information would be relevant. And then we stitch that together, put it in a Google Sheet and send it back to them. Okay. We'll do this on a weekly basis. they will see the information, they'll be like, oh, this link is useful, but then I still have to go and read this piece of information to know what's going on. So that was the next light bulb moment. They said, maybe if the information could be summarized, you can look at it one glance and you'll know what's going on. Okay,
understood.
And you can immediately craft your message. So that was the next iteration of the Google Sheet, so to say, right? The Google Sheet, I'll go back to them every week, right? So they'll be like, oh, hey, I saw this new column called talking points. What is it? So we're like, we're trying to summarize, tell us whether this is effective. They're like, yeah, of course. Otherwise, I would have had to go and read this piece of information. Now I look at this, like about the size of a tweet or two, I fully understand what to tell this prospect. Or I even got information that I should not chase this prospect. You don't want to bark up the wrong tree, right? So there were a couple of incidents where like the SDRs would write back saying, hey, thanks so much because this saved me at least a month of prospecting time with this, follow-up time with this company, because company has been taken over and the function I'm selling to is being moved to the new company. Okay, so those kind of really hit a chord saying, okay, maybe there is something even more valuable for them if they got context of what's going on in the company. Okay,
so it's a context of it's a combination, right? Like basically what's happening in the company you are trying to sell to and what you are trying to sell to, or what you are trying to sell, the product you are building, right? So all these have to be taken together to actually come up with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not just the context of one entity, but it's context across the entities, like the seller and the buyer. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. You want to sell soft drink or energy drink to somebody who's thirsty, right? But you don't want to, like this Fiverr energy shot story that I heard, which is very famous in the US. So you don't want to sell soft drink to a person who's not thirsty but is tired.
Thirsty.
Right?
Yeah.
So if
and you have to do it at the right time. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So gas stations and all of that stuff, right? I'm tired. I'm stopping to refill my gas, and I'm going and paying at the counter, and suddenly I see this fire energy shot. It's only like small, only like whatever 3-4 ounces or something. So it was almost like that, right? It was like, I have to reach this prospect. I don't have good information. I go look around. I see shelves of Coke and Pepsi. I don't want Coke and Pepsi. I want a 5-hour shot. Okay, because the shot gives me energy. It tells me to focus on this prospect in the right way. So that kind of evolved to say, so we also heard from SDR saying, look, you know what, you've done this for like 5, 10, 15, 20 accounts, but I have 100 accounts to go. And I have to do this every month. Okay, next month, 20% of the accounts will be removed and it will be refilled with another 20% and so on. So that was the genesis of saying, okay, what were we actually doing? Even the name had a very interesting origin. We said, if the SDR had to think about and figure out the context, they would go do searches, look through information, and do all this processing and just arrive at what insight should I use in order to speak to the prospect. And that is their brain that would do all the work. We said, but today they were spending enormous amount of time on search engines. We said, look, we are helping B2B salespeople, and we want to be doing all the grunt work of combing through information to figure out what insights are there and surface only the most relevant and contextual ones. And therefore we said we wanted to be called B2B Brain. B2B Brain was difficult to pronounce, even though I've heard lots of prospects use it. And at that point in time, we were also kind of running out of cash. So B2B Brain was an expensive domain to buy as well. Okay.
Oh, okay.
We ended up buying B2 Brain, which was like the normal price. And only about 15 days ago, we bought B2B Brain. Now we have a little bit of money. So
actually, I like B2 Brain.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So thank you. And it also has AI in the middle, right? So that is AI, which is central to the nature of the business and the product that we are selling. So that's kind of how B2 Brain came about. We also thought about where do we want to be present. In fact, our first release was not b2brain.com at all. The product's first release was actually a Chrome plugin that just sat on your outreach sales engagement platform, period. Okay? Because the whole point was, just like your brain, right? Your brain comes with you, helps you do work in whichever context you are in, and is not staring at your face. It's right behind you. Okay? But it's always backing you up with insights and information. That's really what we want to be. Okay? We want to be the you're literally your sales thinking alter ego that comes and gives you insights and informs you of what to do at every point in time. Okay, and
So-
it's predominantly about accounts, right? Target accounts, because our focus is B2B. We do not focus on B2C as a business, right? We don't sell to a consumer, even though a lot of adoption of B2Brain happens by individual SDRs and account executives who start using it. And we've actually designed the product to a point where we believe the time to value for a new user is about 4 hours. They can see value for their business from B2Brain within 4 hours of starting it.
Understood. So basically, you help, you use technologies like, let's say, NLP, like to understand what information is there, and AML to actually to give more time to actually salespeople so that they can really do real sales more than just doing research. Is the way I am looking at it, and
yes. You're absolutely right. So
because I always believe that if you help companies make more money, right, they will pay you money. So that way, like you're helping them make more revenues, right? So that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. In fact, we have had enough people come back and tell us. So we want to get a sense of how helpful and how valuable are we to their business, right? And we've had enough salespeople come back and tell us that, look, you know what, because of B2Brain, on a monthly basis, I am saving more than a week's time. Okay, that I would have otherwise spent on searching through Google and LinkedIn and combing through a bunch of lists and so on. Now think about it. It essentially means that you have 1/3 more time to actually hit your quota every month or every quarter. Okay, and sales teams are notorious across the industry for not being able to hit quota. Apparently, only like a quarter of the sales teams actually hit quota. Okay, so imagine if you had the ability to sell more effectively, okay, and sell for more people, how much of an impact it can make on the larger economy itself, the effectiveness of sales teams across the market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just thinking about those numbers kind of gives you goosebumps. Like, imagine if instead of 25% of worldwide sales teams hitting quota, if B2Brain can influence, say, 5% more of sales teams to hit quota, that's like a massive difference in the economy, literally.
Yeah. And thank you, Sridhar, for all your insights and also talking about B2Brain. I believe with the connected ecosystem of sales, business, and marketing intelligence and sales intelligence, right? So I have a question for where do you think this is going? Like, will there be a time where one bot will sell to the other bot? Where do you see this going in future? Yeah.
So, yes, now let's open the crystal ball, right? I kept it away from for this conversation, but it's fine. Let's open the crystal ball. What will certainly happen is that there will be more tools coming to attack the same problem for a while to come. Okay, I think we are really in early stages of a sales tech explosion, if you will. Okay, people talk about the Cambrian explosion, all of that stuff. We saw something similar happening in the marketing technology stack back in around the 2012, 2013, 2014, that time frame, right? And it's somewhere it's kind of normalized. Okay, now I would say it's a lot more normalized. There is lesser. I mean, while the market is noisy, no doubt about it, and it'll always continue to be so. It's less noisy, okay, if you will. I think a similar wave can happen in sales tech. For example, the way ZoomInfo has been progressing, they've been building their stack pretty significantly and very fast and so on and so forth. Now, things like AI/ML are going to be very core to many of the product value propositions that we'll see. Okay, in some it will be necessary for a posture, okay, but in several others it will be necessary for the business.
Okay.
By that, what I mean is there are tools that might talk about AI/ML which AML won't move the needle for them, but it's necessary just to kind of be in the playing field in the fray to be able to talk about it and so on. But there are tools for which it is absolutely necessary. Okay, if it's not there, you can't survive. Okay, it's kind of like that. So those sort of tools, I believe, will become more and more important in a salesperson's life. Okay, and you can think of you can draw some parallels between the Java programmers' productivity today. A lot of Java programmers today have embraced more declarative scripted languages.
Yes.
Right, and there are several libraries available. Computation is at like a segment level of the code rather than the full file, so on. Right. So the paradigms of how like you basically disaggregated the whole program into multiple smaller chunks and problem solve at each chunk rather than like singular blob and so on. So a similar trend is likely to happen in sales as well. You have multiple point tools that are stitched together through some workflows to make you more effective. Okay, and there will be two groups of winners, no doubt about it, and it's still too early days, right? One set of winners would be the strong and smart point tools that are present at the right places of a salesperson's world. The other is the large platform players who, just by virtue of economy of scale and aggregation, are necessary for anybody to run their process. As to bot selling to a bot, I think it's possible to imagine some situations where a bot could sell to a bot. Okay, it's possible to imagine. Okay, we can sit up and do some white sky, blue sky thinking about it. But I think the larger economy or the larger economy driven by sales is likely to have humans as the last touch points.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is primarily because end of the day, what bots are not yet equipped to do, which humans can do, is apply empathy and judgment. Okay, and end of the day, the buying decision has some level of a reasonable level of judgment involved, and the selling process has a lot of empathy involved.
Exactly. Yes.
That's why I believe the human element is likely to exist.
Yeah. So the way I put it as it's augmented intelligence, and like to augment the intelligence of the humans is the way I look at it. Yeah.
That's a wonderful phrase actually. Augmented intelligence is a good way to describe it. Yeah.
So. And thank you for your time, and I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope our audience also will enjoy the conversation, and I would request all the audience to actually give their feedback and how we can improve, and what are the other topics they would like us to cover, and bye from all of us, and thank you, Sridhar, once again.
Thank you, Suri. Thanks for having me, and good luck.
Yeah.